A very good morning from Eastern France for the opening round of the 2026 BNL Karting Series season. My name's Alex Goldschmidt, your official commentator with you throughout the entirety of the 2026 calendar. Well, the path to the grand finals to Portimao starts here this very weekend for what has always been a true hallmark of the BNL Karting Series season, which is effectively 2 race days in a sole weekend. More to the point, this is the first time we have visited this circuit, which celebrates its 30th anniversary this year for the first time since 2023. We conclude the series in the first weekend of October, thereby giving away 5 Rotax Max Challenge Grand Finals tickets for Mini, Junior, Senior, DD2 and DD2 Masters. And also a new prize, a new initiative has been shown, reference the Senior Rotax division, where the champion will get a one-day test in a Formula 4 car with MP Motorsport. But for those that might be not too very familiar with this circuit, let's give you a little bit of an insight of Racing Kart JPR here at Austricourt in France. So the circuit itself, based around a 25-minute drive from Lille in eastern France, has been in operation for 30 years, 3 decades, and it is a fast and technical circuit. Runs in a clockwise direction, and with it, the track distance is 1,450 metres, the longest circuit with 3 sectors in total. And it will be the longest circuit on our calendar for the first time in 3 seasons. Of course, 3 sectors to negotiate, 13 turns in all. As we go down to the dummy grid for the first time here this weekend. So we're going to have all the qualifying heats up until the lunch break, and then after that we will have the first set of finals for the 2026 running of this championship, which was established back in 2008. And in 2 years' time, will celebrate its 20th anniversary. Of course, very brisk temperatures here in the air. So, our first race that will be coming up very, very shortly will be qualifying heat number 1 for Junior Max Groups B versus C. And it has been a lengthy wait since the end of last season. But more to the point, there's been a lot of activity for Rotax competition, especially with the recent running of the Rotax Max Euro Trophy at Cremona in Italy, the opening round of the United Karting Series at Karting Genk just 2 weeks ago. Of course, the Champions Winter Trophy in what ended up being, at the end of it, a very, very snowy Karting Genk in the Limburg region. So if you are watching along on the BNL Karting Series YouTube channel, put your names in the chat. Let us know who you're supporting. But we will be broadcasting all the action once again this year, courtesy of our live streaming partners. A big thank you, muito obrigado, to the team from Portugal, WFR Live TV. And for me, it's nice to be back up here in the commentary position. It's been a place I've been very familiar with since my first trip to the series back in October of 2018. But the list, the honour roll that we have that has made up part of this championship does also include a man that's going to be running in his own team this weekend at round 2 of the Nürburgring Langstreckenserien, which is, of course, 4-time Formula 1 world champion and a 2-time BNL Karting Series Minimax champion himself, of course, Max Verstappen. There's been quite a few drivers that have come through the ranks over the years that have made their mark in this series and have gone on to great things in the world of modern-day motorsport. So we are T-minus 15 seconds for our first race of the weekend. And it will be Junior Max qualifying heat B versus C. So the engines fire up for the first time here this weekend in 2026 as the drivers make their way out of the dummy grid onto the 1,450 metre 13-turn circuit. Let's take you through the starting order of qualifying heat BC Junior Max. Sebastian Charles-Clark and Finn Albert Jorgensen will line up on the front row. Finley Lines, Ludwig Hansson will be on row 2. Luan Seidel and Lieke van Berkel will round out row number 3. Kian Bernard and Trent van Malik, row 4, with Leo Hardouin and Belgium's Bruce Lambreur rounding out your top 10. Louis Radcliffe and Switzerland's Rados Pascu rounds out the next row ahead of Jensen Walker and Harry Taylor, followed by Julian Dimmer and Tobias Johns. Matthias Verreken with Nathan Liqueur, Yannick Courage and Augustin Hanik. Max Bogstal, Sam Kohler, Jelen van den Berger and Leon Herbose round out your grid. So all of our drivers will take part in 2 of the 3 qualifying heats as we go on to the official formation lap. Ahead of 7 minutes plus an additional lap of racing. So with regards to the timetable itself, the qualifying heats for Junior and Senior Max will be 7 minutes plus an additional lap. The qualifying heats for Mini Max and Mini Rookie and DD2 and DD2 Masters, who will run together on the respective pre-finals, will be 10 minutes plus an additional lap. So we'll be down to Sebastian Clark on the front with Finn Albert Jorgensen alongside on the front row. They will be controlling the pace. And as always, proceedings overlooked by Series Race Director Manuel Branco and his team, as we are very much looking forward to getting what will be our 18th season underway here in 2026. And we are very, very much under starters' orders for this opening race. So each of the junior Rotax drivers, as will the seniors, will compete in 2 of the 3 qualifying heats. And thereby, after that, it will then decide the grids for the final. But with the traditional 2-race day format over a weekend, if you have a bad Saturday, you can come back on Sunday and race all over again. So it is an all KR Sport front row. So Sebastian Clark and Finn Albert Jorgensen alongside each other. Finny Lines joined by Ludwig Hansson on row 2. Switzerland's Luan Seidel and the Netherlands' Lieke van Berkel round out your top 3 rows as we will come out of turn number 13 very, very shortly. This is the last opportunity for these drivers to get themselves steeled and ready for the first race of the 2026 season. A lot of activity in the chat as we will now come out of turn number 13. It is a long, anxious wait as we go. Revs up, lights on. Do we go green here in 2026? Yes, we do. And now it's the run down to the opening corner. There's a little bit of bumping and boring. Nevertheless, Finley Lines gets through on Finn Albert Jorgensen. for second position as they head through turn 2 at breakneck speed. And Finley Lines to the outside of Sebastian Clark makes an absolute perler of manoeuvre. Finley Lines hits the front. He starts P3 and by turn 3 he's in the race lead. Down the hill they go for the first time. Into the double left. They've got to be very careful on the exit curbs out of turn 7. Especially you don't want to scrape your front bumper off the kart quite literally. And that's exactly what happened the last time we visited here to DD2 Masters driver Morgan Riesch, who at that point had come back into competitive action. But Lines at the opening moment decided to get through. Finn Albert Jorgensen going into the Snake Complex, adjusts the flap on the radiator on the right-hand side of the 265 Cosmic chassis. But it is a KR Sport 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Lines leads the way after the opening lap. Sebastian Clark, Finn Albert Jorgensen rounds out your top 3, closely followed by fellow Dane Ludwig Hansson as they will go into the right-hander at breakneck speed here at turn 3. Hansson tries to look to the inside, he's going to dive through. Meantime, Kian Bernard trying to put the frighteners on Luan Seidel. And that is for 5th position on the road. But Finley Lines being caught now by Sebastian Clark in the 251. Into the double left they go with a little bit of compression on both compression zones through both corners. But now it's going to be the case as they go through the chicane. It is a top 4 lockout for KR Sport. Luan Seidel has got through on Denmark's Ludwig Hansson for 4th position. Louis Radcliffe, who's up 3 places from 11th on the grid to now run 8th, is currently the fastest in the opening second sector. Fastest in the opening sector, Matthias Verdaken, up 1 place from 17th on the grid. Finley Lines leads us once again as Louis Radcliffe puts in the fastest lap of the race, 57.962 for the 227, and he's now up into 7th position. And Louis Radcliffe, one of the drivers from Sam Pollitt Racing, but look at the 3 at the front. They were literally bumper to bumper across the line after lap number 2, and now Luan Seidel is right with them. And the gap between the opening 7 drivers is 1.6 seconds. Radcliffe again goes purple in the opening sector. And it looks like we've got our first black and white warning flag. And that is for Leo Hardouin in the 262. That will be more than likely for driving standards. As the drivers are being looked at by race control, but Lines and Clark 0.14 of a second behind each other, and this time Harry Taylor sets the fastest lap of the race. The number 253 from Dan Holland Racing, representing the United Kingdom, is up 6 positions. He's up from 14th on the grid, 57.523. And now look at this, the conga line is being led at the front of the field by Finley Lines, son of TCR UK promoter and main man, Stuart Lines, who is here in person, as the 2 Danes start battling over position. That's Finn Albert Jorgensen versus Ludwig Hansson, and Jorgensen got back through. Meantime, there has been a change. I think that might have been Louis Radcliffe that's made a move, and he's up to P5. We'll see as they come across the line. 3 minutes to go, plus an additional lap. Radcliffe now up 6 spots, and now is closing in on Finn Albert Jorgensen. But Finley Lines, by the time he got to the outside of Sebastian Clark, put it in front at turn 3, lap 1. He has not blinked. He's hardly looked back. He's just got the racehorse blinkers on and is concentrating on what he needs to do to stay ahead of his KR Sport teammate. They've got to be very careful of that chicane that leads them to the top right-hand part of the circuit. We did see a big incident in qualifying in one of the senior Rotax groups between Luca de Moitru and Priam Lang in Group 2, I think it was, in seniors, because there's a bit of a high curb on the left-hand side. Clark now in the slipstream of Lines into turn 1. They are literally hammered down, full throttle through that opening corner. Clark is right on the bumper of Lines, heading through out of turn 2. And Jorgensen shows his nose to Luan Seidel. in the battle for P3. Louis Radcliffe puts in the fastest lap of the race, 57.325. This is going to be very, very close indeed between the top 6. They're covered by just under 1.9 seconds. And Luan Seidel is there or thereabouts, the youngster from Switzerland in the 2-2-1. But behind, Finn Albert Jorgensen has been dropped, and he's got Louis Radcliffe now past him through for P4. Radcliffe up now 7 positions. But it is going to be the case that we will have, at this pace that the drivers are showing, 3 more laps to go. 1 minute and 6, plus an additional lap as they completed lap 6 itself, and Clark still trying to wait for the last moment possible to get through on Finley lines. But he's got to do it sooner rather than later, because the way that Luan Seidel is closing in, it's going to be easier said than done. Now through out of turn 5, into the double left here at 6 and 7. Lines is just really working that steering wheel to the best of his ability. Now up to the top through the chicane. Bumping over the curbs go Clark and Seidel. And Lines has got about a kart length between himself and his fellow British compatriot behind him, and also fellow teammate. But still, there is going to be 2.9 kilometres to go. Lines still has led every single lap of this race from turn 3, lap 1. When is Sebastian Clark going to pull the trigger and maybe make the move? This might be the first race and the first day of the season, but you want to get that little bit of an advantage. And at that moment, as we hit 0 on the timer, Finley Lines is still holding on. Louis Radcliffe, in the meantime, has struck trouble, and he's dropped all the way down to 11th position, I believe. But it is next time around going to be the last lap board for our top 3 drivers. Lines, Clark and Seidel. That has been like that for at least the last couple of laps or so. More to the point, last lap underway. Finley Lines leads into turn 1 at breakneck speed at over 110 kilometres an hour. It's a very, very fast opening sector here at Racing Kart JPR in Ostrigor. Unfortunately, Matthias Verdaken has retired from the race. But it has been an absolutely picture-perfect performance so far by the man leading the way. Through into the top right-hand part of the circuit they go for the last time. Here on what is lap 9 out of 9. Down the hill, through the Snake Chicane Complex, and it will be the first race of the 2026 season. Victory is assured. He took the lead at turn 3. At lap 1, he never looked back. Finley Lines wins. Heat 1 for Junior Rotax here at Ostrigor, and it was a top 3. Lockout covered by just under a quarter of a second. Finley Lines, Sebastian Clark, and Luan Seidel did a picture-perfect top 3 formation. It was like the flying V from Mighty Ducks. From these 3 young drivers, a thumbs up and a show of respect between Finley Lines and Sebastian Clark. But after 13 kilometres, the 281 does the business with an audacious round the outside overtake on Sebastian Clark, who started on pole position. Luan Seidel rounds out your top 3. Harry Taylor making up 10 spots to finish 4th ahead of Leo Hadouin, Lieke van Berkel, Finn Albert Jorgensen, Tren van Melk, Kian Bernard, Ludwig Hansson, Louis Radcliffe, Jensen Walker, Rares Pascu, Nathan Lecure and Gillian Dummer rounding out your top 15. Yannick Courage, Bruce Ramboa, Sam Kohler, Max Bogsal and Leon Herbos round out your top 20. Augustin Hanik, Jilan Vandenberger and Tobias Johns round out the top 23, with Matthias Verdaken unfortunately retiring with 3 laps remaining. But Finley Lines strikes first here in Junior Rotax in the 2026 season. What a great way to kickstart the campaign on the path to Portimao.
Why do you come here? Is this your career?
Or is it all about fun? A chance to get away and leave it all behind?
Or do you chase your personal best? Challenging yourself over and over again. Why do you come here?
Maybe you're here to collect moments. Good ones. And not so good ones.
Where you can't afford mistakes. Because you want that victory. It's all about this one moment when the hard work finally pays off.
This is the place that brings us closer to the people who share our story. Whoever we are.
Whatever we're here for. Racing is who we are.
Well, as you can see here in Eastern France at Racing Kart JPR in Austricourt, which celebrates its 30th anniversary here in 2026, we are just seconds away from our second race of the opening day of the 2026 season. And so great to see many people in the paddock. When I arrived here mid-part of yesterday afternoon and doing my morning walk around before time qualifying, great to see so many familiar faces and people with smiles on faces ready to get back to a campaign and a series that has always been very much international in the drivers that have come here from far and wide, from all four corners of the globe, all 6 continents. And a big thank you to everybody that is also interacting with us on our social media channels, on Facebook and on Instagram. You can also find out further information about the dates on the calendar at bnlkartingseries.com for further information. But the calendar being this weekend, the 20th to the 22nd of March, and then we go to the Corvan region of southern Belgium for round 2 on the 17th to the 19th of April at Karting de Fagne. Karting Genk will host the third and final rounds of the championship on the 19th to the 21st of June, and the 2nd to the 4th of October. The 2026 Rotax Max Challenge Grand Finals will head to the Cartódromo Internacional do Algarve in Portimão in Portugal between the 21st and the 28th of November this year. So now that we've got the first race out of the way, it's time to turn our attention to our biggest subscribed group of this weekend. 42 senior Rotax drivers representing 12 nations. So still a very significant breeze in the air, blowing the banner flags in the background. There we see the 358 Boaz Maximov. But the engines fire up in the senior Rotax ranks as the drivers make their way out of the dummy grid as we get set and ready for senior Rotax. Qualifying Heat 1, Groups B and C. And with exhaust smoke from the entirety of the Rotax Max Evo engines, 125 cc's of displacement, single cylinder with a chain drive system, mating the engine to the back axle. Oh, and well, there is the 346 Luca de Moitro, the Romanian driver. That kart has not got a driver in it, and I'm not too sure if that kart, well, the trolley jack is there, so that means that that is going to be carted back to the GKS Lemons power awning. Let's take you through the grid for Heat number 1, senior Rotax qualifying Groups B versus C. Sverre Ubben and Macaulay Bishop, the reigning defending BNL Karting Series champion and also the Grand Finals champion, who has already secured his ticket earlier on this year, heading over to Houston, Texas. So, well, it was in the United States. I think it was Florida for the win. Well, there's always the RTX Winter Trophy. So Macaulay Bishop is already looking forward to a year of preparation rather than having to worry about getting the ticket. Vince van der Harlen, Thomas Verheyen round out an all-Belgian row 2. Boaz Maximov and Harry Freeman round out row 3. Kenneth van Merkerke, Tom Lanois, Bran van der Weken and Lars Lambers are next up. Header Bastian Misneil, Charlie King, Danny Shields, Antoine Lemieux, Callum Sims, Victor Galmiche, Koen Willems, Tino Potier, Max Swiderski, Boris Verhaag, Connor Large, Luca de Moitstu, obviously, as we've seen there, non-starter in this one for the Romanian in the 346. Matthias Jerrup, Rein van der Meer, Liam van Hekke, Arnold Sabaha, Ryan Gandor and Priem Lelang round out the grid on this particular occasion. So 42 drivers will take part in the 3 qualifying heats, of which they will take part in 2. And then, of course, we'll have the top 36 final to decide after the pre-final stages. But obviously, if we have more than 36 drivers in one category, we always then go to the qualifying heats. It's always been part of the format for many a year. So we'll be down to Sverre Ubben. Pole position is on the right-hand side of the circuit here at Ostricourt, as it is a right-hander at turn number 1. But already, the Junior Rotax division brought some excitement to the early start of this season. Now, what will the seniors bring in their first competitive action out on track here in 2026? It's a slow crawl into the tram lines, revs up, lights on. Do we go green here in seniors for 2026? Yes, good start by Sverre Ubben. And straight away, Vince van der Halen tries to sweep to the outside to get the undercut, and he's got the job done. They're wheel to wheel for the race lead. And here comes the 358 of Boris Maximov. Oh, van der Halen sideways under braking, manages to get it stopped. But oh, couple of carts exit stage left at turn 3 at the hairpin. And one of which is the 338. Oh dear, that's Thomas Verheyen, and the left front steering is absolutely broken. The wheel turned in towards the rear of the front bumper, and Thomas Verheyen becomes an early casualty. Well, actually, it was the steering completely gone. Both wheels were turned inwards. But in the meantime, well, it is going to be Vince van der Halen, sideways under braking into turn 3, kept it stopped. Maximov in P2, Sverre Ubben, Kenneth van Monkerke rounds out your top 4 and is closing in on the 348. And Macaulay Bishop might have been also the one that was involved in that particular altercation. It's everyone jockeying for position early doors. And Macaulay Bishop, I think was just caught out by it. And that just goes to show how quickly things can turn on a sixpence. But Thomas Verheyen's race very, very quickly over by the outside of turn number 3. Meantime, the top 3, like we saw in the juniors, this time the top 3 in seniors in this race are starting to break away. So there is a bit of a gap. Bastien Mesnil looks to have moved up the order and is currently P4. Kenneth van Monkerke has got Lars Lambers and Danny Shields closing in. Sverre Ubben is going to try and see if he can get through on Boris Maximov into turn 3. And the GKS Lemons Power driver in the 348 gets the job done. So good move there by the 348. So Maximov down to P3. Mesnil, Lambers, Van Monkerke, Shields, Langlois, Charlie King, Bran van der Weken now rounds out your top 10. But Sverre Ubben going a little bit defensive at the top right-hand part of the circuit to cover off Boris Maximov in this early part of the race. We're nearly at half-time here. As someone gets onto the dust and the grass outside of turn number 13 and held on to the bucking Bronco that was the chassis underneath. That could have been very quickly a code brown and clean up on aisle 3 for that driver. They had a little bit of a lucky scare at that point. Bran van der Weken at the moment, however, has just put in the fastest lap of the race. 56.616 for the 396 for Bouvin Power representing Belgium. But Vince van der Halen has just gone purple in Sector 2. He's opened up the gap to 6/10 between himself and Sverre Ubben. Van der Holle, along with the likes of Lars Lambers, along the likes of Bran van der Weken. And as I see, Patrick Verbist is in chat on cue. And someone else. Now, was that Danny Shields possibly? Might have been. But because of the low-lying sun coming across the gantry and pointing directly to turn 13, it is difficult from the camera position to pick that out. Ryan Gandor has made up 12 places and started all the way down in 27th. He's now 15th. Just puts in the fastest lap of this race. 56.544. Macaulay Bishop is still circulating, however, and is now ahead of Connor Large. As we're going to see a dive, that's Bastien Mesnil through on Maximov, who returns the favour of the next left-hander and retakes P3. Now Lambers is there. Van McKerker, keep your eyes on the 355 of Tom Langlois in what is 7th position. Now this is a home track for him and quite a few of the French drivers. Mesnil is the quickest out there. Mesnil looking up the inside of Lambers. And Langlois is trying to get through on Van McKerker. That's for P6. A minute and 3/4 plus an additional lap to go. There are conga lines up and down the field. But more to the point, Vince van der Holle has opened up a gap and it's over 7.5 tenths now. Boris Maximov holds on to P3. Lambers is now through on Mesnil. Bearing in mind... Bastien Mesnil just got through round the outside of Maximov as if he was standing still. And now Lambers and Maximov go into battle into turn 3. That just goes to show how ultra competitive it is. And there's the 374 of the UK's Charlie King. He's definitely making sure that he's going to get his elbows out here. Charlie King running with Strawberry Racing. And Charlie has made up 5 places at the moment from the outside of row number 6. Danny Shields now rounds out the top 10. Max Swiderski, who started all the way down in 19th position, is up 7 spots. Arnaud Sabarin, who started 26th on the grid, is now running 17th. There's all Lambers between a bit of a rock and a hard place, because between him and Charlie King is Kenneth Van McKerker. The 3 are starting to battle. Langlois is just waiting. He's going to look to the inside of Charlie King. Through into turn 2. That's a great move from the Frenchman. And then locks up the anchors on a sixpence. Stops it in time. Gets through. And Langlois, runner-up last year in this division, took an early lead in the first half of the championship season. And Van McKerker through to the inside. Lambers runs wide. Langlois is going to get through before the chicane. Oh, my goodness me. Lars Lambers gets a warning flag, black and white warning flag from race control. And now it's all kicked off. Oh, big 3-card incident. And in amidst all of that was the 325. Danny Shields got caught out. So that has eliminated Max Swiderski, Charlie King, and Lars Lambers all on the spot. King's got the engine fired up. Swiderski looks to be in some discomfort there. Right side, he might have taken a blow to the right side, so there will be yellow flags at that point on the circuit. But it all came to a head, and that has allowed Van McKerker and Langlois to get away. Antoine Lemieux now up into 6th position as the final lap is underway amidst all that drama. But Vince van der Holle is going to very shortly be seeing what will be the checkered flag. Langlois cannot get through on Van McKerker, but through the final sector we go. And from the inside of row number 2, he takes the win. Here on the road, it is going to be Vince van der Holle. 2nd, Sverre Ubben. 3rd will be Bastien Mesnil. And it's going to be a drag race to the line. Van McKirker edges out Tom Longlois by 33 thousandths. Antoine Lemieux, Boris Maximov, Ryan Gandor makes up 19 places. From 27th on the grid to finish P8. Blan van der Weken and Victor Galmiche round out your top 10. Matthias Jellerup up 12 spots from 23rd to finish 11th ahead of Boris Van Haag, who started on the top 20 on 20th place. Harry Freeman, Arnold Sabahat and Callum Sims round out your top 15. Priam Lelang started from last place effectively and finished in 16th ahead of Danny Shields. Koen Willems, Rein van der Meer and Tina Poitier ran out your top 20. Liam von Hecker, Conor Large and Charlie King are the last of the classified runners and riders. Lars Lambers, Max Swiderski, Macaulay Bishop and Thomas Verheyen out of the race. Luca de Moitru, a non-starter in an action-packed and highly charged opening qualifying heat for seniors in 2026.
Why do you come here? Is this your career?
Or is it all about fun? A chance to get away and leave it all behind?
Or do you chase your personal best? Challenging yourself over and over again. Why do you come here?
Maybe you're here to collect moments. Good ones. And not so good ones.
Or you can't afford mistakes because you want that victory. It's all about this one moment when the hard work finally pays off.
This is the place that brings us closer to the people who share our story. Whoever we are.
Whatever we're here for. Racing is who we are.
Well, from one of the most highly charged classes, we go to our youngest drivers, the Mini and Mini Rookie Division, as we're just not that far away. Of course, they're cleaning up the incident that we saw at the tail end of that first qualifying heat for Senior Rotax. And great to see these drivers. They put on a really, really good demonstration of how close qualifying can really be. We've got 26 drivers in total here this weekend. And of course they, along with DD2 and DD2 Masters, will have a pre-final and a final on both days of competition. There is Maria Roberto with a very much Alice in Wonderland inspired race helmet. Young lady running with KR Sport. showing great pace in qualifying here on day one of the series. So drivers are just waiting for the green flag to fly at the end of the dummy grid to then start up their Rotax Max Evo 125cc engines. Now, Austin Oman did get a penalty post-qualifying with regards to the session. Was the second quickest in the session, but then ended up being demoted down to 7th. The only person unable to set a time in the session was Milad Garsmaker for Dams Racing, who was due to start 26th on the grid. And in terms of the honour roll, Riley Morrow was the champion back last season, and actually was the third Brit in successive years, following 2023 with Jacob Ashcroft and then Jensen Chalk the year after, and Riley Morrow last year. Riley now moves up to juniors for the 2026 season. And in the Minimax rookie division, created back in 2023, Jack Freeman from the United Kingdom, the inaugural champion in that class, ahead of Ryan Rampadana back in 2024 and Arlo Gamble last season. We have closer to more of a 50-50 spread between Minimax and Minimax Rookie this year in this opening round of the season, which means that there is going to be quite a bit of competition for Arlo Gamble, who returns as the defending Mini Rookie champion for the 2026 season in the number 72. Quickest qualifier in the Mini Rookie division. And put him actually in the top 10, which is a pretty good shout for him. And that was ended up being 8th for the Sam Pollitt Racing driver in the number 72. But the engines are fired up, and here we go for Minimax and Minimax Rookie for 2026. It's going to be 10 minutes plus an additional lap around the clockwise 1,450 metre circuit here in Austracal. Let's take you through the starting grid. It's going to be an all KR Sport front row with Joshua Cook and Maria Roberto lining up on the front row. Dian Habits and LBJ Stubbs round out row number 2. Teddy Murphy and August Lickerbo-Lingzo will round out row 3, ahead of Austin Oman and Arlo Gamble, with Raphael Hardouin and Arthur Bowers completing the top 10. Zane Sofoglu and Lenny Barton making it all Mini Rookie, row number 6, ahead of Tristan Abils, Gabriel Wallet, Charlie Page, Malte Holm, Rayan Townsend, Chloe Malling Sorensen, Henry Mayat and Jayan Prakash, who round out your top 20. Omer Masudieli, Julian Janssen, Maxime Ball, Evert van Middeldorp, Kan Aras Akun and Milita Karlsmaker round out your 26-strong grid, completing 13 rows of competitors as we go on to our official formation lap. So now the drivers make their way to the top right-hand part of the circuit here at Ostricourt at Racing Kart JPR. So 10 minutes plus an additional lap. And then the results of the pre-final will then decide the grids for the final a little bit later on. And the Mini Max and Mini Rookie final due to take place at about 2:30 local time here in Eastern France. But it is an all KR Sports front row with Cook and Roberto side by side. So the red lights are ignited on the starting gantry here at Racing Kart JPR in Ostricourt for the first pre-final for Mini and Mini Rookie. Into the tram lines, revs up, lights on. And we are green here in 2026 for the season. As to the inside, tries to go DN Habits. And has got through on Maria Roberto early, but Joshua Cook has gotten the initial advantage. Heading up to the braking zone for turn 3, 3 wide. As to the inside goes the 121. Austin Oman has been shot out of a rocket. It's like a rocket shot out of a cannon, and he's trying to go for second on the driver from Dams Racing into turns 5 and 6. I cannot believe my eyes. Austin Amon trying to dive to the inside of DN Habits, gets through for second. Here comes Teddy Murphy trying to battle with the 131, and just behind they've got August Likebo Lingzo, the youngster from Denmark, who dives to the inside of the 177, gets through on Murphy. But my goodness, Austin Oman, he was shot like a rocket out of a cannon from P7 and now runs P2. Teddy Murphy being challenged by Maria Roberto coming out of the opening corner. Just in front, they've got August Likebo Lingzo. Murphy gets through, Roberto gets through. Lingzo down 2 places as a direct result. But you can just see how bumpy and undulating it is here in the middle part of the circuit through turns 6 and 7. And Roberto gets overtaken by Lingzo before they head into the chicane. They've got to be very, very careful on that high curbing on the left-hand side, which I did see Maria Roberto just hit quite aggressively. And I've seen it before. As Lingzo and Roberto playing musical chairs. And right behind them, I think that might be Arthur Bowers in the 99 in Mini Rookie. Yes, it is. And Arthur's moved up 3 places. Zayn Safoglu, the young Instagram superstar from Turkey. Sidewall clash between Lingzo and Roberto, who gets through at turn 3. But Joshua Cook is being now pressured by Austin Amon. DN Habits is closing in on the 2 in front. But the way that Maria Roberto just got her elbows out on August Likebo Lingzo, and I think Arthur Bowers has just overtaken the 123 from Denmark for position. So that could be that August Likebo Lingzo has dropped down from 5th to 7th. 3 minutes of highly paced and full throttle action here in the Mini and Mini Rookie pre-final for day 1 out of 2 for the opening round of the series. And Joshua Cook is leading. Austin Amon, a quarter of a second behind. DN Habits, this year's Champions Winter Trophy winner, rounding out your top 3, covered by 0.516 seconds. DN Habits has just taken the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 1.270. As Austin Amon looking for the opportunity to present itself, and through he goes into turn 6 to the inside of Joshua Cook. And Austin Amon from 7th on the grid now hits the front. DN Habits gets through, but Joshua Cook is not wanting to play that game. Gets back through at turn 8 into turn 9 and 10, at the chicane they go. And Cook had the intention and right forthwith to get back through on Day and Habits. Milo de Carlsmaker, keep your eyes on the driver in the 106. He's up 13 places. We'll make that 12 because he's... we'll make that now 13 because he's through on Giant Prakash and is closing in on Ray Townsend in the 110. Another driver from KR Sport. But we are closing in on half-time in this first pre-final for Minimax and Minimax Rookie for 2026. The air temperature now has started to climb, and we're now at 9 degrees centigrade. Air temperature, track temperature will also evolve. The tyres will start to grip and purchase a little bit more on the circuit as the racing continues. Austin Amon leads us on to what will be lap number 6. Joshua Cook right in the wheel tracks to the driver from Sam Pollitt Racing out of turn number 1, but loses a little bit of momentum as they head into turn 2. Cook needs to be a little bit closer to try and maybe go for the move on the inside of the braking zone into turn number 3, and with that, Joshua Cook, new fastest lap, 1 minute 1.045. But as we saw in the battle for the win in juniors for Heat 1 earlier on today, it was the case that the top 3 have broken away, and they've broken away quite significantly because Maria Roberto, she's made her way back up into 4th position in the 152. It's about 1.4 seconds behind this, or behind D and Habits. But now, 3 3/4 minutes to go. And it is just waiting for Josh. It's just that. They do say that you tell a driver to be patient. And Joshua Cook has decided at the 3.5 minute mark to get up the inside of Austin Amon, retake the race lead, and stays back in front. But Austin Amon is not wanting to hang about here. So one driver that has not taken any further part in this race, Raphael Hardouin, unfortunately is not a participant in this race anymore. And started P9. Milo de Garsmaker has been absolutely scything through the field at the moment. The 106 has made up 16 positions, now rounds out the top 10, and is trying to close on in to Tristan Abeels, who is about half a second up the road. And that is for 9th place. Another new fastest lap by our race leader, Joshua Cook. That's 2 fastest laps within the last 3 that the 175 from KR Sport has been able to manage. We've got Neuro54 in YouTube chat cheering on Zain Safoglu, who is now the leading mini rookie driver in 7th position. Ahead of the 47 of Lenny Barton, who's got 999 Steve-O in chat on YouTube saying, "Come on, Lenny B." But now we are really seeing some great battling at this sharp end of the field. LBJ Stubbs has now retaken 10th position. As to the outside at turn 3, Austin Amon has just put in the fastest lap of the race and could have done could have taken a page out of the textbook of what we saw in Junior Max qualifying heat number 1 at turn 3 out of the playbook of a certain Finley Lines. But at this juncture, He's got to wait for that opportunity, but time and corners and laps are not on the side of the Sam Pollitt racing driver. But what the beauty of this circuit is Arthur Bowers, Julian Janssen and Ryan Townsend are out of the race. We've got 2 to go. Damien Hello 7594. Hello, Damien. Who is the youngest driver? I think it might be Zain Safoglu in the number 54. And, great to hear from Freddie Walker, cheering on his teammates at KR Sport. Good to hear from you as well, Freddie. But this is going to be a titanic battle. And to the inside, that is Osterman back for the race lead on Joshua Cook. Once again, he steals it from the 175. But Cook, and now keep your eyes on the danger driver in third. Dayan Habits, this year's Champions Winter Trophy winner, is right with them. The Belgian sweeps to the outside. Tries to get the over-under on Cook. He switches to the outside here for what is going to be turn number 11 into 12. And then into 13 coming up shortly. Last lap is underway. Osterman leads as we head on to lap number 11. Joshua Cook to the inside at turn 1. And the 175 from KR Sport retakes the lead. Dayan Habits might have his 2 cents to say in this matter. But whilst this has happened, keep your eyes on the driver in fourth, Maria Roberto. She has closed that gap significantly. Damien, I think Zane is just over, is between 6 and 7 years of age. So I think this might be the year of his 7th birthday. I will confirm that in due course. But Maria Roberto makes it a 4-horse race. As to the outside for the crossover, Osterman. Will he throw the haymaker around the outside of Joshua Cook? He does. Oh, right at the last gasp. Joshua Cook was trying to hold on out of the final corner. Osterman wins a cracking pre-final here for Minimax and Minimax rookie by just over a 10th and a half. Joshua Cook, Dayan Habits and Maria Roberto, they were covered by just under half a second at the line after 11 laps. August Likimo-Lingzo rounds out your top 5. Teddy Murphy, Zain Safoglu, the youngster from Turkey, takes the win in Minimax rookie in 7th head of LBJ Stubbs. Lenny Barton makes it 2 in the Minimax rookie division that hit the top 10, placing 9th head of Malte Holm from Denmark. Tristan Abils takes 11th head of Milo de Karsmaker, who makes up a massive 14 places, starting last and finishing 12th. Gabriel Wallet, Jayan Prakash, Maxime Ball, they round out your top 15. Charlie Page, Henry Moyat, Omer Mazzudielli, Chloe Malling Sorensen, and Arlo Gamble round out the top 20. Kan Arasakun and Evert van Middendorp round out your 22 finishers. And unfortunately, with 6 laps to go, we lost Arthur Bowers, Julian Janssen, and Ryan Townsend. And Raphael Hardouin, unfortunately, did not finish the opening lap. But what a way to finish our first pre-final for Mini and Mini Rookie here in 2026. Coming up next, we'll have our next batch of qualifying heats. And it'll be Heat 2 for juniors. Groups A versus C.
Why do you come here? Is this your career?
Or is it all about fun? A chance to get away and leave it all behind?
Or do you chase your personal best? Challenging yourself over and over again.
Maybe you're here to collect moments. Good ones. And not so good ones.
Where you can't afford mistakes. Because you want that victory. It's all about this one moment when the hard work finally pays off.
This is the place that brings us closer to the people who share our story. Whoever we are,
Whatever we're here for, racing is who we are.
Well, for those watching at home, you can see that at the moment the drivers that are going to be competing in qualifying heat A versus C, that's qualifying heat 2, which means that Group C will have completed their 2 races out of the 3 that will be taking place. So we've got, obviously, the widths being checked at the back axle, making sure they're within spec. And obviously, drivers will have, they have barcodes on the tyres, on the engines, so they will normally be scanned when the drivers come through. Of course, a hive of activity with the mechanics and their trolleys there. So quite a few drivers. First one I spotted there was driver 218, Jensen Chalk for MLC Motorsport. Himself a previous Minimax champion for the BNL Karting Series. But looking at the honour roll list for drivers that have won this, well, of course, someone who's now moved on to Ginetta Juniors with Elite Motorsport. Jacob Ashcroft won the title back in 2024, and also he was pretty much the man to beat at every single championship he competed in. Mateo Radenkovic won this title back in 2023. Tommy van der Stroys the year previously. Kai Gielert, who is the only driver in the history of the series to win 3 BNL Karting Series titles in 3 different classes. His first title, well, obviously he's suffered an injury getting back to doing some karting for training. So, Kai, if you're watching, get well soon. I hope your right arm heals very, very quickly indeed. He won as a Minimax driver back in 2017, and then juniors twice in a row, 2020 and 2021. And then he went on to win the Senior Max driver's title in 2022. Mike Van Vugt, who's here as well, is also a multi-time champion. Mini-Max back in 2016. And then in his 2 dominant years in Europe, also, I think, 2018... I think he won the BNL, the BMC, Chrono Karting, and also was Euro Trophy champion. He won the BNL on both years. Then the likes of Thomas Preining, DTM champion a couple of years ago. Danny Kreuz, Finn Koyman, Sam Shippers. Also 2 former KR Sport alumni drivers, one of whom is going to be going back to compete in the USA, Joe Turney, who did a fantastic job back in 2016. And then, of course, another alumni, Claven Ravenscroft as well, another driver. So quite a few drivers, some of which who have moved on to bigger things. Tommy van der Stroy in shifter karting nowadays. Ashcroft now in Ginetta Juniors. So... but a lot of great talent that we have got here this weekend for the Junior Rotax division. So a total of 37 drivers. And still, there is Jensen Chalk, the 218, sporting his... Team UK overalls from last year's Grand Finals, which headed to Bahrain for the 3rd time in 5 years. It's definitely one circuit that a lot of the drivers who have competed in previous Grand Finals have really enjoyed, and that measures, it's actually slightly shorter, just over 1.4 kilometres in length. So we have got about 10 minutes to go. So let's have a look at the YouTube chat. Let's see what's going on there, shall we? So not much has changed from what I was seeing earlier on. So We've let's see who we've got. Isaac Barker saying good luck to Dan Holland Racing. Amber Care Solutions. So great racing between Sebastian Clark and Finley Lines earlier on. Matthias Van Aken's got a few cheerers on in the chat. And speaking of Mike Van Voort, I think he's just walked it through the back of the shot there by the railings with sunglasses on. Yes, it is very, very much clear blue skies up above. So if you are watching long, I know there's over 120 of you watching on YouTube. So for those that haven't subscribed, please do. It just means it helps us promote the sport of karting, which is something that we're deeply passionate about. And, you know, it's one of those sports that there's been a lot of talk about karting. And I have to say, credit to a new IndyCar driver, a new rookie in the series this year. You'll know the surname, of course, and also the first name. Mick Schumacher said that karting was really what helped me get up the order. And despite the fact of who his dad is, that karting is a very, very good building block for drivers that are looking, as you can see there, Alfie Ward, who is going to start this race from pole position. And the one who's got the Batman sign on the back of his race helmet, that was Finn Albert Jorgensen. There's Lucian Smith walking around. So we do have a little bit of a slight breather in proceedings, but it means it gives the drivers a little bit of an opportunity just to calm down. But it looks like Alfie Ward's in the zone, so to speak.
Why do you come here? Is this your career?
Or is it all about fun? A chance to get away and leave it all behind?
Or do you chase your personal best? Challenging yourself over and over again. Why do you come here?
Maybe you're here to collect moments. Good ones. And not so good ones.
Or you can't afford mistakes because you want that victory. It's all about this one moment when the hard work finally pays off.
This is the place that brings us closer to the people who share our story. Whoever we are.
Whatever we're here for. Racing is who we are.
So very shortly we'll be getting things back under racing here for the opening day of the first round of the 2026 BNL Karting Series season. Here at Racing Kart JPR in Austricourt in eastern France. So we now go on to the second batch of qualifying heats here on Saturday. And looks like Adam Matiak is in the chat, along with Sebastian Clark's YouTube channel saying, "Go KR Sport Team." Yep, there we go, which means it's someone on site, whether it's Sebastian or one of the family members doing so. But that was great racing between him and Finley Lyons and Lewin Seidel in the opening junior Rotax heat of the season. So we now go down to the dummy grid once again, and just under 60 seconds to go to then officially release the drivers from the dummy grid here at Austricourt. There, as you can see, is your starting grid. So it will be Alfie Ward that starts on pole position. Finn Albert Jorgensen will line up on the front row. And behind them will be Lucian Smith and Ludwig Hansson. Albert Friend and Lieke van Berkel will round out row number 3. Followed by Riley Morrow and Tren van Melek. Jente Moonen and Bruce Rambo will complete the top 10 in the starting order. 25 drivers set to take part in this one. Dire Dodalo and Rares Pascu round out row 6. Loris, I think it's Mousset Loris Perron or Loris Mousset Perron. I'm not 100% sure. Harry Taylor. Jensen Chalk starts 15th on the grid ahead of Tobias Johns, Lionel Munguia, Nathan Lecureur, Dion Braca, Augustin Hanik, Justin Fonk, Sam Kohler, and the sole driver from Algeria. Now this is a name I recognise, Ruslan Sraya, in the 292 for running with Arthur Lehouk's team on the Kart Republic chassis. Starts 23rd ahead of Ian Herboz. And Ozhan Alpaslan from Turkey for Strawberry Racing, bringing up the rear of the field in 25th position. Once again, this second qualifying heat will be 7 minutes plus an additional lap. And, oh, good, well, hello there, Emerson McAndrew Uren on cue. Good morning over there. Jur Drent is also in the chat, cheering on Dion Braca. And Emerson's cheering on Rares Pascu. So the first qualifying heat of the year for Junior Rotax really had a great battle at the front end of the field. So what will Heat 2 bring us here at Austricourt? Oh, right, someone is having a little bit of a... Oh, that's Riley Morrow trying to refire the 222 Sam Pollitt racing kart. And that kart is now stuck at turn 7. And he's trying frantically to get the kart going again. But it doesn't seem it wants to cooperate, I'm afraid. And Riley now looking at the right-hand side of the kart where the engine's located. So Riley Morrow out of the kart. He's just... Oh! There we go, so... So now they've got the kart cleared out of the way. Accompanying Riley Morrow was Series Race Director Manuel Branco and one of our team, Alexis Schumbrud, helping to get the kart out of the way, as Riley will now go to the nearest marshal post to get to safety. And Freddie Walker... Moment Benamor. Another friend from the Mina karting family. Greetings to you all in Tunisia that are watching. Up into the tram lines, revs up, lights on, we go green. Here for heat number 2. Good start by Alfie Ward. As Lucian Smith and et al. Are trying to go through. Lucian Smith has gotten up into second, but now that was one of the DHR karts that got a little bit of a sidewall hit heading into turn 3, and there has been a little bit of a contretemps involving 211 Perron. Also in there, I think that is more than likely going to be, is that DD2 in the 299? It might have been very much the case, so... Well, that just goes to show, or was it... let's just have a look. Yeah, DD2 was the other driver. There was a third driver involved. I didn't quite catch the number, but that person definitely got compromised, whoever it was, and it might have been Trent Van Melek. So after the opening lap, Alfie Ward leads, Lucian Smith in second. Third is Jente Moonen, who started down in 9th place. Ludwig Hansson in 4th. Lieke van Berkel, she's now up into 5th place. The youngster from Denmark, Finn Albert Jorgensen, is now down into what is 7th position because MLC Motorsports' Jensen Chalk has moved up. And Chalk, well, it was a bit like what we saw with Osterman in the Minimax Pre-Final. He's another one that's literally got the jump on everybody else and was like a stabbed rat. He got through on a few people, and then, well, Jente Moonen might have Ludwig Hansson to the outside for P3. No, Moonen's holding on to position. Lucian Smith nearly went rally crossing through turn 12 and kept the 240 KR Sport Cosmic on the black stuff. Well held there. Ludwig Hansson in that camouflage kind of livery has got Van Berkel trying to the inside. Moonen's possibly going to lose 2 spots here through 3. Not quite, drops to 4th behind the Dane, who's now got a body in white front bumper, which basically means it's got no stickering on it whatsoever. Fastest lap of the race at the moment, Albert Friend, who's dropped down to 11th place, having started 5th. He's just put in a 58.133. As we've got just over 4 minutes to go. And Lucian Smith going, he's really getting very aggressive on the cut-in, on the curbing, going through the left-hander at turn turn 12. And here comes Jensen Chalk with a head of steam. He's right on the rear bumper of Lieke van Berkel. And the MLC Motorsport driver is going to try to dive through at the inside of turn number 3. Harry Taylor, however, in the number 253, has moved up 6 places. New fastest lap of the race so far. That's a 58.065 for the 253 from Dan Holland Racing. Other big movers. Lionel Munguia in 11th position in the 209. Normally runs with the Redeka Kart Racing team. Up from 17th. Jensen Chalk in 4 laps has just made up 10 places. Finn Albert Jorgensen's race is not going that well. It's going backwards rather than forwards. As the Dane who started on the outside of the front row is now behind Nathan Lecure in the 214 and is all the way down in 13th position. That's a loss of 11 places. Lecure for SF Automatech, the French squad, running on the Kart Republic chassis. As Lucian Smith in second, Alfie Ward leading the way. It's the KR Sport 1-2. Now flying in formation, trying to make sure they keep themselves at the sharp end of the points table. Finn Albert Jorgensen, however, is responding. He had a disastrous lap 4. It was like 1 minute 2. And he's just gone in and put in a 58.1. Roris Pascu, the youngster from Switzerland, who's up 4 spaces, now puts in a 57.849, the fastest lap of anybody. Tren van Melk, who started 8th, dropped all the way down to the bottom part of the top 20, now runs 16th. Last time around was the fastest overall driver in sector number 3. Meantime, well, Sam Kohler didn't even get started either. Oh, careful, Alfie Ward. That was coming out of the chicane. Left rear wheel out of the chicane. And it caught the dust just off of the grass on the left-hand side of the circuit. Now through into turn 13. Go our top 2. Smith runs a little bit wide. As, Harry Taylor has dropped. Big time. Now, has Harry Taylor's just come through. He was running way up the order, and he's now down in 21st position. Finn Albert Jorgensen back on the move again, the youngster from Denmark. Puts in the new fastest lap of the race, 57.753, and continues that with going fastest of anybody. Purple sector in sector 1. Meantime, we will have, coming up very shortly, 2 laps to go. It's Ward and Smith. It's effectively like a KR Sport Tag Team event. And Lucian Smith has just said to Alfie Ward, let's just keep running away from everybody else. Because Ludwig Hansen is 1.5 seconds behind. Timer hits 0. We're now on lap 8 out of 9. And another second successive fastest lap in a row for Finn Albert Jorgensen. Another 57.7. This time, the last 2 numbers behind the decimal point are a 0 and an 8. He's closing in on Bruce Ramboa. Next time around, it will be the final lap, and Group C will have completed their 2 qualifying heats here for the first day of the competitive season for 2026. And Alfie Ward has led from lights out so far, and he's going to be leading the way, crossing the line to take the final lap board. Here we go. Another 1.45 kilometres of racing for the midway point of the qualifying heat stages for Junior Rotax. And at the moment, it is KR Sport that is the dominant powerhouse in this division here in the opening race day of the season. Through into turn 5. Here on lap number 9. Ward and Smith running in each other's wheel tracks. Through into 7, now into turn 8. Turn 9 at the chicane. They both aggressively bump over the left side curbing to carry the momentum of the kart going forwards. And now Alfie Ward takes a look over his right shoulder. Sees Lucian Smith not that far behind, but knows that he's got a bit of a gap. Through out of the final corner. Finley Lines wins Heat 1 for KR Sport. Alfie Ward does the same for the team in Heat 2. With a 1-2 finish across the line for the squad led by Ash Orchard. Ludwig Hansen takes P3. Lieke van Berkel. Jensen Chalk rounds out your top 5 after taking 10 places from starting 15th on the grid. Albert Friend, Jens Immunen, Finn Albert Jorgensen, Rares Pascu and Bruce Ramboa round out your top 10. Nathan Lecure, Lionel Munguia, Tren van Melk, Tobias Johns, then we've got Leon Herbos rounding out the top 15. Dion Braque, Justin Fonk, Rozan Slaya making up 5 places, did the Algerian from 23rd to finish 18th with Augustin Hanik. And Ozlan Alpaslan from Turkey, rounding out your 20 finishers. And that would be ahead, well, the top 20 finishing with Musi Loris Perron, Didi Dadala, and Harry Taylor rounding out your 23 finishers. Riley Morrow and Sam Kohler did not make it to the start of the race. Well, that is the halfway point of the Junior Max qualifying heat stages as everyone now enters into Parc Fermé scrutineering. And, of course, there is the infamous the phone of doom, or the clipboard of doom, if you will, as the front bumpers are being checked by our team. And then, of course, they'll go on the weighbridge to make sure that the drivers meet the minimum required weights, including kart and driver. And then, at any point, our scrutineering team can say to a driver, okay, right, we need to inspect this. And that can be at any point. It can be a random spot check to make sure that the kart does conform to the technical specifications, the global Rotax Max Challenge specifications, that is. So with that in mind, that is the second out of 3 qualifying heats for the juniors completed, with Alfie Ward, Lucian Smith and Ludwig Hansson rounding out your top 3. And next up, we've got the midway point of the qualifying heat stages for senior Rotax. Heat 2 coming up very, very shortly. The qualifying heat, groups A versus C. So now time to turn our attention to the second out of 3 qualifying heats for our senior Rotax division. 42 out of the 119 participants here this weekend. 28 drivers set to go into battle for 7 minutes plus an additional lap. And just looking back at the previous honour roll that we have, there's a lot of drivers that have won this title. Macaulay Bishop, the defending champion, last year. Jaden Teen back in 2024. 2023, Kai Hunter. Kai Hillertz winning it in 2022. Then Luca Lystra in 2021. Sean Butcher 2020. Dylan LaHaye, who is a two-time champion of the series back in 2017 and 2019. Joe Turney won it in 2018. And I still remember that particular dominant performance. He blitzed the field. He whitewashed everybody that weekend. Glenn Van Prijs, and also the only American driver that has ever won the BNL Karting Series title. That man went on to race with Arrow McLaren in IndyCar before, and also Formula E, Oliver Askew back in 2015. And that particular year, he also competed against a man that would eventually finish third in that championship season, who is back in NTT IndyCar once again. A lot of people might know him globally as Rinus VK. We know him as Rinus van Kampthout. He was third that year. Vincent Joel, Philip Morin, Berry Tornville to Nicholas Clays. And that's as far as the history books that I can go back. And that's 14 years worth of history. All the way back to 2011. So once again, it will be a quick fire 7-minute plus an additional lap heat for this one. So air temperature still around about 9 degrees centigrade as we are seconds away from sending the drivers out onto the 1,450 metre circuit here at Ostricourt. So the engines fire up. Let's take you through the starting grid for this one. On the front row, it's an all DHR front row lockout. Taze, Van Wyck and Macaulay Bishop line up on the front row with Van Wyck on pole. Raphael Moreau and Thomas Verheyen on row number 2. Scott Marsh and Harry Freeman making an all-British row number 3. Crick Knoren and Tom Lanois, row 4, with Louis Oliver Gunther and Lars Lambers rounding out the top 10. Augustin Boulet and Charlie King, row 6. Raymer Van Beek and Antoine Lemieux rounding out row 7. Antoine Taron and Victor Galmiche making it all French, row 8, with Lado Kouhanidze, Tino Potier, Ryan Bourguignon and Boris Verhaag rounding out the top 20. Completing the 28-strong grid will be Vic van Kampenhout, Luca de Moitro, Jarle de Risgaard, Rein van der Meer, Tino Sidler, Arnold Sabaha, Arav Dewan and Priam Lelang, who complete the running order. Good to also see Arav Dewan being mechanicked by a driver I used to commentate on back in the days. Great to have Jacob Dukes in the paddock with us. So shout out to his dad Dean and also brother Toby, who've also been busy in the world of karting. So the drivers will now effectively be getting themselves set and ready, and still waiting for the opening heats of the weekend. Did see Vince van der Halle take the win on the road. Obviously, we're still waiting for I'm still waiting for official confirmation of results as they stand. So what I can tell you at the moment is just provisional as things are at this moment in time. So obviously with the seniors and the juniors, we'll have an intermediate classification for effectively what are the quote-unquote pre-final stages, but it is qualifying heats. So as I said, each driver competes in 2 of the 3 qualifying heats. And it will be exactly the same for seniors and juniors tomorrow for day 2 of the opening round of the series. But Van Wyck and defending champion Macaulay Bishop on the front row, a lockout for Dan Holland Racing. But what is going to happen over the next 7 minutes plus an additional lap? So, revs up, lights on. Here we go for heat number 2. We are underway. And Bishop swings to the outside. That's going to give Moreau the opportunity to dive through on the defending champion. And that does take place. Macaulay Bishop finds himself behind Scott Marsh, who's through into P3. Thomas Verheyen is rounding out the top 5 as they come through to the infield section. Yellow flags. So that would have been towards turn 3. But at the moment, it is Thijs van Wyk as Scott Marsh dives to the inside. All that was brazen at turn 8 by the 347 for Strawberry Racing. Got through on Raphael Moreau, looks like at turn 8. Now Macaulay Bishop waiting for his opportunity to get through. Might have a good run if he gets a good launch coming out of turn 13. Looks like he's on the rear bumper of the 326. As they come across the line into turn 1, Bishop would be best to wait for his chance at 3, but he loses a little bit of speed coming out of turn 1. And Crick Knoren's right on his rear bumper. So is his chief rival from last year, Tom Langlois, who's looking to do the switchback on the 377 from the Netherlands. Into turn 6 and 7 they go. And the back end, I think, may have just drifted a little bit wide on the Sodi Kart chassis of Tom Langlois. Lars Lambers picks up a second black and white warning flag this weekend. One in his first heat and now one in his second heat. And Thomas Verheyen might be the driver that is might not have made it past Sector 3. Right, okay. Moreau, fastest lap of the race. 57.133. And who has started? Oh, a few drivers have tumbled a little bit. Well, Charlie King is all the way down in 25th position. Priam Lelang all the way down in 27th. Thomas Verheyen is out of the race. Harry Freeman has gone purple in Sector 1 with a 15.896. Marsh is trying to close in on Van Wyk for the race lead. Bishop now P4 ahead of Knoren. There's Langlois on the G-Kart 53 Sodi Kart. Harry Freeman in 7th. Lars Lambers, Antoine Lemieux, and the sole Georgian representative in this grid, Lado Kouanidze in the 380. I have to say something about his countryman, Mate Kobahidze, who is going to be making his debut in British Formula 4 this year. So it's going to be a shame not to have Mate on the grid along with Dad Vako. But wishing them all the very best of luck, as here goes Scott Marsh at the inside of turn number 3. And that's it. Job done. He's through. Tino Sidler, the man from KR Sport, the youngster from Switzerland, multi-time RMC Swiss Junior Rotax champion, coached by brother Mario these days. Mario himself a multi-time champion in Rotax Max Challenge Switzerland. And if anyone was to say there are no racing circuits in... Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Raphael Moreau held on to that one, throttle fully open, and foot pinned to the floor, bounded over the dust out of the chicane and still kept a hold of it. And now he's got Bishop breathing down the back of his race overalls. 3 minutes to go. Van Wyk in the wheel tracks as race leader Scott Marsh as we head down towards turn 3. Scott Marsh covers to the inside. Here goes Bishop to the inside at turn 3, and he's through. And another new fastest lap. That was purple across the board for Tino Sidler. 56.520, and he's up a whopping 12 places from 25th on the grid after a disaster in qualifying. Arnaud Sabahat, the man from Canada, is also up 11 places, rounds out the top 15. As there we see Harry Freeman. He's making his way through. He's got through on Tom Langlois. Now he's got through on Raphael Moreau. So both French drivers have been passed very quickly by the 378. Van Wyk within a quarter of a second of Scott Marsh. The slipstream coming through turns 1, 2 and into 3 can be mighty, but it's about how you measure the braking performance of your kart going into that right-hand 180-degree hairpin at turn 3. We're now on lap number 6 of this race, and to turn 7 go our top 2, covered by not even a kart length. You can cover both of them with an A4 sheet of paper, and you'd still have plenty of room to add Macaulay Bishop to that. So next time around it will be 3 laps to go. And Van Wyk looking to get on with the business of trying to get through on Scott Marsh. But Marsh, a very accredited driver in his own right. And as I say that, Vako Kubahidze's in chat. Yeah, hopefully, buddy, if I can make it to one of the rounds. We did have a discussion about that a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? So it'd be good to be there as a spectator to cheer on Matty for British F4 this year. So another driver that has moved up into... Well, I said about Jacob Ashcroft moving into single-seaters and Mate Kubahidze going to British F4. So 2 great young talents. Their karting careers have been very much assisted by the team at Dan Holland Racing. And that just goes to show how quickly you can develop as a karter. Right, 2 laps to go. Marsh still up front. Van Wyk is close this time. 0.18 of a second. Marsh looking over his right shoulder. And as we exit turn 3, the timer hits 0. Macaulay Bishop is about 1.5 seconds behind in P3. Freeman, Lambers, Langlois, Moreau, Lemieux, Kuhanidze, Knoren. That is your top 10. But at the moment, Scott Marsh doing exactly what he needs to do, but he's got to be very, very careful. A double look over the right shoulder in quick, rapid succession as they now head into turn number 11. Van Wyk sweeps to the outside. Can he do the switchback through the final couple of corners? It's a short run to the line here at Ostricor, and Van Wyk dives through. Final lap is underway. And now Scott Marsh returns the favour at the very next corner. Game on for the race win here in Heat 2 for Senior Rotax. And it all was instigated by Van Wyk diving to the inside of Scott Marsh through at turn number 15. There was more than enough room in the local inn for the Dutchman to make the move through on the Brit. Through into 6 and 7 for the final time, and Macaulay Bishop, well, he's got to within half a second of his teammate from Dan Holland Racing. Harry Freeman has been on the charge in this one. The 378 from the United Kingdom from KR Sport is also catching them. And there is Bishop. This could be a very, very close grandstand finish. Bishop trying to get through on Van Wyk. But can it be that one person's going to win this? It is going to be a run to the line. Scott Marsh wins Heat 2 by next to nothing. 0.155 of a second covers your top 3. Scott Marsh winning after 9 laps by just 96 thousandths at the line ahead of Taze Van Wyk and Macaulay Bishop, who round out your top 3. Harry Freeman finishes 4th ahead of Lars Lambers, Tom Langlois, Raphael Moreau, Antoine Lemieux, Lado Kuhanidze and Tino Sidler, who caps off a great charge through the field from 25th to round out your top 10. Antoine Tajon finishes behind Crick Knoren, who takes 11th position on the road. Boris Verhaag, Arnold Sabahan, the Canadian, in the number 304 from KR Sport, made a good push through the field, up 12 places to finish 14th, ahead of Victor Galmiche, who rounds out the top 15. Good run also by Arav Dewan in the 320, the only driver from India here this weekend. Rounds out your top 16, having started 27th. Louis Oliver Gunther, Vic Van Kampenhout, Tino Potier, and Ryan Bourguignon round out your top 20. Charlie King, Luca de Moitro, Rein van der Meer, Raymer van Beek, Augustin Boulet, Priam Lelang, and Hjalte Risgaard round out your 27 finishers. And unfortunately, on the opening lap, it was game over for Belgium's Thomas Verheyen in the 3.38. Well, that concludes the second out of our qualifying heats for Senior Rotax. Up next, it's our pre-final for DD2 and DD2 Masters.
Why do you come here? Is this your career?
Or is it all about fun? A chance to get away and leave it all behind?
Or do you chase your personal best? Challenging yourself over and over again. Why do you come here?
Maybe you're here to collect moments. Good ones. And not so good ones.
Or you can't afford mistakes because you want that victory. It's all about this one moment when the hard work finally pays off.
This is the place that brings us closer to the people who share our story. Whoever we are,
Whatever we're here for, racing is who we are.
So we have now gone into double digits with regards to the air temp. So 11 degrees centigrade here at Racing Kart JPR in Austricourt in France for the opening round of the 2026 BNL Karting Series season. Now, well, I think he might be absorbing the sun whilst relaxing in it, Jim Ringleberg in the 547, our pole sitter in DD2 Masters. There's the brother of Days Van Wyk, who we just saw in action, Yort, who's now moved up into DD2, running with the team operated by Stan Pex, the SP Motorsport outfit. So good to see that team back as part of the championship once again. But we will have 13 total drivers, comprising the majority of which will be our DD2 contingent. And of course we go from direct drive to gearbox action. So all of the karts, 125cc Rotax Max Evo engines mated to a 2-speed gearbox. And then with regards to, well, when you look at the honour roll of the championship itself, champions in DD2 include Mathis de Tige, Zen Derua, Sean Babington, who is the only driver that has run under the flag of the United Arab Emirates. He won the title back in 2014. Hungary's Ferenc Kanzar won it in 2015. Kevin Ludi, the only driver from Switzerland that has taken a title. Then Barry Pullinger from the United Kingdom back in 2017. And then we had two drivers taking back-to-back titles, respectively. Zana Shriblak, who is here in a capacity not behind the wheel, but behind the tools. He won the title in 2018 and 2019. And then Glenn Van Parijs won it in 2020 and 2021. Mark Kimber back in 2022. And then Tom Bracken the year after. Nikita Genzer from Germany that season won in 2024. And last year from the Netherlands via way of the United Arab Emirates, Sem Knopfjes. DD2 Masters. Jim Ringelberg actually won this title back in 2015. Christoph Adams is the most decorated DD2 Masters champion in BNL Karting Series history, winning the title from 2000. He won it on 4 straight years, 2011 to 2014, and then won again in 2018. Carl Klebor, who we know his son Jordi has been racing quite recently with us, but Carl has won that title 4 times. Jim Ringelberg, who I mentioned, Ian Getz, Ronald Billings from the UK won the title in 2017. Rudy Champion, Paul Louveau and Christophe Capitan, who are 3 drivers that I've mentioned previously. Christophe is the defending DD2 Masters champion from last year. But it was the Carl Klebor era from 2019 right the way through to 2024. And he picked up 4 titles out of the 6 years in the BNL Karting Series. So, quite interesting that Zander Shriblak did also go on to the GT Open Cup for a couple of years. Glenn Van Parijs now doing a lot more in terms of the driver coaching side of things, but also in previous years has competed in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux, amongst other championships. So there's been drivers that have made sure that they've had an opportunity to go higher up the ranks in motorsport. But the green flag waves at the end of the dummy grid, and without further ado, let's take you through the grid for the DD2 and DD2 Masters pre-final. It's going to be Len Noyes, the 417, who will start from pole position. Ralph van der Pavert, as there's a cheeky wave from Christoph Adams to our walking cam as he drives out of the dummy grid. Ralph van der Pavert will line up on second on the outside of the front row. Jort van Wijk and Yannick Jacobs round out the top 2 rows. Yannick Jacobs taking the Grand Finals E20 Senior crown last year in Bahrain, but has also been very much a stalwart within RMC Germany over the last few years with Kraft Motorsport. Behind them, pole sitter in DD2 Masters, Jim Ringelberg, the man that took the title in 2015. He lines up on the inside of row number 3 with the returning Nicolas Guillaume alongside him in the 491. Theo Lang and Christophe Capitan are next up ahead of Theo Lemoine. Pepin Riedman, Jeffrey Salon with the very bright pink kart, I have to say. Christoph Adams and Gwen Blogseil rounds out your running order. 13 drivers set to take part in this 10 minutes plus an additional lap pre-final. There you see the 410. Very, very brightly coloured. And good to catch up with Christoph Adams this morning. That his jacket matched his new tool set that he's got. Red and white. And obviously, for those that do know of Christoph Adams, he is a character. He is eccentric, I think is probably the term that I would use. But he is a driver that has competed, he's qualified the most times for the Rotax Max Challenge Grand Finals. And he had an unbeaten streak that a good friend of mine, and in some ways his, I have to say, shout out to Saskatchewan's very own Scott Campbell, who I first met in 2019. Christoph Adams is the most decorated He's had the longest streak of qualifying for the Grand Finals, but he also competed for 3 different nations. France, Belgium, and more recently, the Netherlands. But now we get underway with our first pre-final of the series of the championship year for 2026. And great to see drivers like Len Nyes return to this series. And I still remember the days when he used to battle away the likes of the driver that used to be known as the Blonde God, Dewey de Decker, Thomas Stauver et al. So here we go for race for the pre-final, and we are underway and green. And Van der Parvet tries to go to the outside at turn 1. However, he loses out to teammate Van Wyk. Ringelberg up to P4 now. And it's Linus Stern going through into turn 3 for the opening tour. Ringelberg, despite the fact he might be one of the youngest DD2 Masters, if not the youngest we've got on the grid, he has got a lot of pace underneath him. As we're going to see a move, Van der Pavet dives to the inside of Van Wyk. And the 2 SP Motorsport drivers playing musical chairs. Ringelberg right with them, along with Theo Lang in the 420, who gets through on Ringelberg. Jacobs trying to find an opportunity to dive through on the inside of the next corner. But it's not going to be easy. I think he's got Nico Guillaume right behind him. As they come across the line to complete the opening lap, Len Nyes leads, and it's 3.5 tenths is his advantage. Jim Ringelberg holding on to 5th position at the moment. The top 3 starting to break away. But a very action-packed... Well, going through the chicane, Jort Van Wyk clipped the curb on the left-hand side of it with the left front wheel. The back end went up in the air, was slightly sideways, and he landed it with all 4 contact patches on the tyres, landing on terra firma. Well held, well played. Lap 2 in the books. And Len Nyes now up the road by about 0.3 of a second. Van der Parvet, Van Wyk rounds out your top 3. Theo Lang being closed in on by the man leading the DD2 Masters classification. Well, there has been a change a little bit further back as Yannick Jacobs gets through on Nicolas Guillaume. And that is a change for 6th position. Christophe Capitan is not that far behind countryman Theo Lemoigne, who's running in the 435 and is up 1 position to P8. Maybe Jort heard me on that particular occasion. Don't go too hefty into that chicane. He dives to the inside of Van der Parvet. His teammate gets through for P2. Fastest lap of the race, however, is the 491 from Belgium on the Express, provided by GKS Lemons Power. Nicolas Guillaume, 56.870, but that's quickly changed as Van Wyk has just put in a 56.793 on the 433 Kart Republic chassis from SP Motorsports. Now, good to see. Well, for those wondering, how can you tell the difference apart on the drivers when it comes to SP Motorsport? You'll see the blue accents. Firstly, on the edges of the rear bumper, light cyan blue for Jort Van Wyk, deep purple for Ralph van der Parvet. I'm wondering, we might have somebody that has got a noisy exhaust. But I did hear that one was definitely not sounding on song, I'm afraid. Meantime, Yannick Jacobs closing in on countryman Theo Lang. Jacobs with the fastest lap of the race. A 56.5 second lap time, dead on the nose by the 401 from Germany. Might be Pepe Riedman that might have that blowing exhaust. He just came across the line, and yep, there it is. Mechanical black flag has been confirmed. The 481 is going to have to park it in the pit lane, I'm afraid, after 4 laps have been completed. So I think I just heard Liepman just go, possibly is coming round through turns 6 and 7. Meantime, Len Noyes is getting away. And here, oh, that was a big run wide by Theo Lang. Will Yannick Jacobs dive up the inside of turn 1? Yes. Theo Lang just made a misstep coming out of turn number 13. Kicked up the dust from the dry grass alongside the exit of the corner. And Yannick Jacobs did not need a second's hesitation or a second. Well, he didn't need to really wait for it. He just saw the move, went for it, got the job done. And Theo Lang has now lost out to Nicolas Guillaume. Theo Lemoigne from France in the 435 is also right with the driver from Germany in the 420. So Theo Lemoigne running for the Le Hook Racing team, closing in on the German in front. Lang takes a look over his right shoulder, heading into turn 1. Lemoigne has an opportunity here, might dive to the inside. There he goes through at turn 3, wheel to wheel for the briefest of moments, and Lang has to end up going a little bit wide out of turn 3 on the exit, and that allows DD2 Masters race leader Jim Ringelberg put a cart between himself and the defending Masters champion from last year, Christophe Capitan from RM Concept. Just over 3.5 minutes to go. So we have lost Pepijn Rietman. We've also lost Gwen Blokzeil, the lady driver from the Netherlands in the 413. Dominic Hummels, like I said, has had a family matter to attend to. So completely understand him not being here with us potentially for the whole of the weekend, which will be more than likely the case. However, Jort van Wijk is closing that gap to Len Noyes. It is now down to less than 2 3/4 tenths of a second between the pair. Out of turn 5, into the double left. And as I said, you can see the undulation. There's the little bit of a bump, and you could see a little bit of movement from the Kart Republic chassis, the 433 of Jort van Wijk. But oh my goodness me, he absolutely launched it over the curbs through the chicane at turn 9. Now into turn 11. Van Wijk might get the run coming out of the final corner, heading into turn 1. Depending on how clean Len Noyes keeps it on the racing line. Noyes looks over his right shoulder with the briefest of glances. Through into turn 1 as we start lap number 8 of this race with just under 2 1/4 minutes to go, plus an additional lap. But 2 minutes remain on the timer, plus an additional lap, and with the blistering pace that the top 2 have been setting. 56.809 by Noyes, 56.677 by Van Wijk. And that gap is next to nothing. Less than 1/10 of a second separates the pair. Noyes is now having to look over both his shoulders as they will come out of turn 12, bump over the curbing once again, through into the right-hander that brings them onto the start-finish straight. Lap 10 now started, and the gap still 0.137 of a second. Can Van Wijk close on in and get the run into turn 3 under braking? No, because Len Noyes shifts it down to first, hits the brakes. Van Wijk is trying everything in the playbook to get through, from switchbacks to crossovers, and try and anticipate how Len Noyes is going to react. And Van Wijk to the inside at turn 8. New race leader, the 433 from the Netherlands. But I think at this point, I'd either want to be Len Noyes or Ralph van der Pavert at the minute, because they are not the one, neither of them are the one that is leading this race. Van der Pavert to the inside of the final corner, to the penultimate corner. And he got through on Ralph van der Pavert. 2 laps to go. 2.9 kilometres of racing. And Len Noyes, he is charging forward. Oh, bit of contact between him and Van Wyk. And Van der Pavert's going to steal the lead into turn 3. Keep your eyes on Guillaume. He's got Jacobs to his inside. And now the free-for-all starts. Guillaume through to P3. And Len Noyes, who was second, now runs 5th. It's Van der Pavert who leads the way through into turn 7. We've got this and one more lap to go. And through the chicane, Van der Pavert leads a very closely fought 1-2 between him and his teammate Jort van Wyk. Guillaume nearly saw a window of opportunity. Through into turn 10, into turn 11, down the hill we go. Through 12. And now into turn number 13. Ralph van der Pavert with a borrowed new race helmet leads us on to the final lap, covered by just over a 10th and a half between himself and his teammate up to turn 3 for the final time. Van der Pavert goes defensive on Van Wyk. And now to the outside. Oh, this is going to allow Guillaume to dive up the inside, and he makes contact with the briefest of moments. And Yannick Jacobs gets through at turn 6 for P3. What can you say about this? It might not be the biggest field, but they brought the fireworks here to Ostricor. And it is going to be a run to the line here. Watch this for a photo finish. Van der Pavert holding on. Van Wyk, Guillaume, Noyes now up into 4th. Through in towards the final corner. Ralph van der Pavert wins the pre-final. That's a belter for the 468. Oh, and it was 0.2 of a second at the line. And it was a 1-2 for SP Motorsport. Van Wyk in P2. Nicolas Guillaume started on the outside of row 3, finishes 3rd ahead of Len Noyes. Yannick Jacobs ends up 5th. Theo Lemoigne rounds out P6. Jim Ringelberg in 7th, who won Masters, was only 1.1 seconds off the winner. How close was that? That was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Christophe Capitan finishes 8th, 2nd in Masters, ends up 1.3 seconds off of the race winner after 12 laps here at Ostricor. Then we had Theo Lang and Jeffrey Salon running out the top 10. Only 10 out of the 13 drivers that started finished the race. Christoph Adams retired with 5 laps to go on lap 7. Pepin Rietman with a blowing exhaust got the mechanical black flag 3 laps earlier. And on what was effectively lap 2 or lap 3, Gwen Bloxhill would pull to the side of the road and retire from the race. Ho, ho, ho. Well, that's the pre-final stages of the competition completed for day 1 of the series, but we still have 2 more qualifying heats to go, because in a little bit of time, I think in about just over 20 minutes, we go to our penultimate qualifying heat of the day for day 1 of round 1 of 2026, and it's going to be Junior Rotax qualifying heat 3, groups A versus B.
Why do you come here? Is this your career?
Or is it all about fun? A chance to get away and leave it all behind?
Or do you chase your personal best? Challenging yourself over and over again. Why do you come here?
Maybe you're here to collect moments. Good ones. and not so good ones.
Where you can't afford mistakes because you want that victory. It's all about this one moment when the hard work finally pays off.
This is the place that brings us closer to the people who share our story. Whoever we are,
Whatever we're here for, racing is who we are.
Right, well, a little bit of update for you folks watching at home and also for the people here. We have had some of the results actually confirmed because there's been a lot going on here for the opening day of competition for 2026. And I'd like to say, on behalf of the entire team here at the BNL Karting Series, for everyone interacting with us on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram, and also you can head to bnlkartingseries.com, which is our official website. So looking back at the results that have been confirmed from the races so far, it was for qualifying. I'm looking at the results that I can see at the minute. We've had 3 races where the results have been confirmed. And the first one was qualifying heat A versus C, which, hang on a second. A versus C is still not yet fully confirmed, but for the first race of the 2026 season, it was Finley Lines that took the win. Sebastian Clark and Luan Seidel did round out the top 3. The only driver penalised in the race was the 265 of Finn Albert Jorgensen. Now, thanks to the wonders of modern technology, it was basically for a bad manoeuvre carried out by the youngster from Denmark. So he was then given a 5-second post-race penalty. So that was the only penalty handed out. Minimax and Minimax rookie Lenny Barton and Charlie Page received a 5-second penalty for the front bumper not being in position. Maltehom also got a 5-second penalty, but for a bad manoeuvre, which thereby caused a potential incident. So 5-second penalty for that one. And then qualifying heat 1 for seniors, quite a few penalties issued out, but the majority of them, if not all bar one, was for front bumpers being out of position. Antoine Lemieux, Matthias Jellerup, Callum Sims, Corn Willems, Connor Large, Danny Shields and Charlie King. But for Danny Shields, it didn't end there, I'm afraid, because the senior driver from the UAE also had been given a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision. So a total of 15 seconds worth of penalties added to Danny Shields' overall race time, which dropped him all the way down to 22nd. So it just goes to show that, yes, of course, the front bumpers being in, it's an automatic 5-second unappealable penalty. But then it just goes to show that things can be very, very different in terms of, you make one mistake, okay, fine. If your bumper's in, you can't appeal it. It's part of the sporting regulations. But when race control and race direction have to make a decision, then, of course, if the driver's called to the stewards, that does happen. So those are, at the moment, the confirmed results that I can tell you about as of right now. But we will, on the live stream, be back just before 1:10 because we have 2 more qualifying heats to go before we go to the official lunch break. And then we have our first set of finals for 2026, which will be starting at around about 2:30 local time here in eastern France. So we're around about a 25-minute drive from Lille International Airport. And we'll have 2 more races to go, and that will be the third and final qualifying heats for both junior and senior. So that will be groups A and B in action. Group C for both divisions have already completed their 2 qualifying heats. So that's just a bit of an update for you folks at home watching on the BNL Karting Series YouTube channel. Don't forget to give us a like, share and subscribe whilst you're at it. And if you are watching in the chat, I am keeping an eagle eye on that, and I'll try and attempt to give as many shout-outs as I can over the course of not just today, but tomorrow. But we'll be back in a little bit, probably in about 10 minutes' time here on the live stream, as we get set and ready for our last 2 qualifying heats before our official lunch break.
Why do you come here? Is this your career?
Or is it all about fun? A chance to get away and leave it all behind?
Or do you chase your personal best, challenging yourself over and over again? Why do you come here?
Maybe you're here to collect moments. Good ones. And not so good ones.
Or you can't afford mistakes because you want that victory. It's all about this one moment when the hard work finally pays off.
This is the place that brings us closer to the people who share our story. Whoever we are,
Whatever we're here for, racing is who we are.
I was the dominant. Wait, so how many penalties did you get? One bumper. And one collision. That was not my collision. So you got 10 seconds. Yeah, if you can. That's easy. Or just oh no, I got my nose at the start. Oh, okay. So I was using it.
So we're now T-minus 4 minutes and counting until we get underway, with the drivers being shown the green flag at the end of the dummy grid and to head on to 2 formation laps ahead of 7 minutes plus an additional lap of racing here for the junior Rotax division. There is the 222 of Sam Pollock Racing's Riley Morrow. Didn't have the greatest start to his previous heat, didn't even make it to the start of the race at all, but hopefully a bit more luck will be on the young man's side in the 222 there. To Riley's immediate left-hand side, there is a vacant seat that should be occupied by Yenthi Moonen, who's probably just keeping the... There we go. Yenthi Moonen in the back of shot there. There is Finley Lines, our winner of the opening heat of the weekend, and also the first race of the championship year, as the mechanics are now told with 3 minutes to go to clear the dummy grid. So as they say, it is the calm before the storm. We've already had the opening 2 qualifying heats completed for the junior Rotax division, and I now can confirm the following, that Alfie Ward and Lucian Smith did finish in a KR Sport 1-2, followed by Ludwig Hansson in P3. Lieke van Berkel moved up from 6th on the grid to finish 4th, ahead of Jensen Chalk from MLC Motorsport, who made up 10 spots, finishing ahead of Albert Friend. Yenthi Moonen, Finn Albert Jorgensen finished 8th, ahead of Rades Pascu and Bruce Ramboa. And one driver did get a penalty, and that was Harry Taylor. 5-second penalty for the front bumper not being in the right position. So the bumper being in, or clips being in thereof. There is Sebastian Clark, ready and waiting to put the visor down and fire up that Rotax Max Evo engine to his right-hand side by the starter button on the left of the kart. Now, if either Alfie Ward or Finley Lines win this heat, that one of those two drivers will be on provisional pole position for the final. So the green flag waves at the end of the dummy grid, and we get set and ready for the final qualifying heats of the day. For Junior Rotax, qualifying heat 3, groups A versus B. Let's take you through the starting grid. Alfie Ward will start on pole position. Alongside him, Sebastian Clark on the front row. Row 2 will be Lucian Smith and Finley Lines. Row 3, Albert Friend and Lewin Seidel. Riley Morrow and Kian Bernard, making it all Sam Pollock Racing. Row 4, Yenthi Moonen and Leo Hardouin from France round out the top 10. Didier Didala and Louis Radcliffe round out row 6. Mousse Loris Perron and Jensen Walker round out the top 7 rows ahead of Jensen Chalk and Germany's Julian Dumas. Lionel Munguia, Matthias Verreken, Dion Bracker and Yannis Courage round out your top 20. Completing the 25-strong grid will be Justin Fonk, Max Bogsal, Roslan Sraya, Yilan Vandenberger and Oslan Alpassian rounding out the 25-strong grid. And with the blue skies still up above the circuit here at Racing Kart JPR in Austricourt, I cannot see a cloud in the sky. And the track is absolutely bone dry as well to boot. And with the temperatures increasing, means it makes it a little bit more pleasant for everyone here this weekend. So now the drivers make their way to turn number 10. So we'll be down to the looking at it from this perspective, the top 2 rows rounded out by the purple, silver and white of KR Sport. And 5 of the top 6 karts on the grid are from the same stable. The only one that is different is Albert Friend, starting on the inside of row number 3 for Dan Holland Racing in the 219. So with the previous Junior Rotax heats being highly competitive, the victories in both the winning margins in both races less than 0.2 of a second. What's going to happen as we're set to find out here in qualifying heat number 3. Revs up, lights on, and we are green in the final qualifying heat. And to the inside goes Lucian Smith. And it looks like Smith has gotten the race lead as they head up towards turn number 3. But Albert Friend from P5 now goes for the race lead and gets through at turn 3. 4 places gained within the opening 3 corners. And keep your eyes on the driver in third position. That's Riley Morrow. Started P7. As it's going to be very close. All bit sideways there for Albert Friend. Riley Morrow gets through. And now the floodgates have opened. And someone's had a bit of a spin at the back of the field. It might be Lionel Munguia, I believe, in the 209, who's had a drama coming out of turn number 7. But Riley Morrow hits the front. Friend battling away with the 283 of pole sitter Alfie Ward. Just behind them is Lucian Smith. Morrow leads, and he's a country mile ahead. He's 1.1 seconds up the road. More to the point, Albert Friend is having to battle tooth and nail. He goes defensive in front of Alfie Ward. Lucian Smith is right there. Kian Bernard gets through on Yenthi Moonen. Finley Lines down in 7th position. So a minute and a half of the way through this 7 minute plus an additional lap encounter. Kian Bernard goes for the move, gets through. Lucian Smith drifts wide on turn 8 as they head through the chicane, manages to get back through on Yenthi Moonen. Oh no, big incident between the pair. Heading out of turn number 9. Smith and Moonen are out, it looks like. Moonen trying to pull the kart back onto the circuit. And Lucian Smith, disappointingly, well, dejected, is the youngster from the United Kingdom. And now Albert Friend has got more than company. He's got people trying to get through on him. And at the moment, that is trying to be the case for Alfie Ward. Keep your eyes on Finley Lines. He now joins the back of this 4-kart train as Riley Morrow is away and clear. He's 2.1 seconds up the road. Bernard tries to get through at turn 6. And that means that Ward runs wide. Finley Lines gets through. That's P3 for the 281. And keep your eyes on the back there. There's Sebastian Clark in the 251. Clark now down 4 spots from having started on the outside of the front row. And some of the drivers will have to keep their wits about them. They've got to be very, very careful. So, Lucian Smith, unfortunately, is out of the race. Riley Morrow is away and clear and is pulling fastest lap times through at the moment. Well, Lionel Munguia has decided, no, you're not. And he's the first one to dip under 59 seconds. 58.909 from the youngster from Decker Kart Racing Team from the Netherlands. Finley Lines now gets dive bombed up the inside of turn 8. Kian Bernard gets through for 3rd place. And now Alfie Ward is closing in. So is Sebastian Clark. So at the moment as things stand, well, Kian Bernard through on Finley Lines for P3. Now, when you consider the fact that Alfie Ward and Finley Lines both have a heat win to their credit, it depends on what happens here. Because more than likely, as Jensen Chalk fires in the fastest lap of the race, he's up 6 places from 15th, runs 9th. Head of Jensen Walker, Gillian Dummer just outside of the top 10 in 11th position. Lines and Ward, will they do the tag team on Kian Bernard? Not quite, as Sebastian Clark dives through on the 283. And that is really going to be very, very close indeed on that particular occasion. So Finley Lines at the moment, 81 points. Based on a win in Heat 1 and 3rd currently in Heat number 3. When you consider also Alfie Ward, first as, oh, here we go. Clark on the inside of Bernard, that's through. Change of position. And that is for P4 on the road. Alfie Ward currently runs in 6th position. That's 34 points. Actually, it's 91 for Finley Lines, 84 as again Clark. Well, that was a good textbook switchback for the 251. Bernard went through, ran deep at turn 8. Clark saw the window, went through it, got the job done. And there goes Alfie Ward, now up into P5. That's 86 points, putting him 5 behind Lines. And Sebastian Clark runs for 38 points. Add 44, that's 82. And now Jensen Chalk gets through on Dididadale. That's a change for 8th position at turn 1 by the MLC Motorsport driver. Sebastian Clark now firing on all 125 cubic centimetres of displacement. Oh, Finley Lines nearly dived up the inside through at turn 5. On Albert Friend, and Sebastian Clark nearly was able to pick up the pieces. But no, it did not quite happen. Albert Friend currently second, 44 points for that, plus another 34. That will put him on 78. But we have 2 more laps to go in this Junior Rotax third qualifying heat. And at the moment, as things stand, if Finley Lines finishes where he is, I think he will take provisional pole, but it might not be by much. Probably by a couple of points if it stays as it is now, as Ward has got through on Bernard for P5. That puts him on 86. Lines still on 91 at the moment, based on the real-time intermediate classification. We have hit 0 on the counter. Riley Murrow away by 2.5 seconds as Albert Friend continues to fight every single millimetre of this 1.45 kilometre circuit to keep Finley Lines at bay. But it could be enough for the man in the 281, running in the traditional green helmet colours of the Maximum Motorsport outfit. Final lap underway. 2.8 seconds is the leading margin for Riley Morrow from Sam Pollitt Racing. What's Lines going to do when it comes to getting past Albert Friend? Well, it won't happen into turn 3. Albert Friend parked it on the racing line. No quarter given, no inch provided, no mile taken by the 281. Into turn 6 and 7, over the little bump, with the back axles slightly going into the air for a fraction of a second. Through the chicane for the final time. Clark might get the run possibly, but Lines goes defensive into turn 10. Riley Murrow, however, he's got a bit of redemption here after his first heat. Riley Murrow from Sam Pollitt Racing wins qualifying heat 3. Second goes to Albert Friend. Finley Lines will take third, provisionally putting him on pole position for the final. Alfie Ward, well, this could be close. Alfie Ward takes 5th at the end of it behind Sebastian Clark. So yeah, 86 points, but Riley Murrow, however, stole the show in Heat 3. After just over 13 kilometres, he wins by nearly 3 seconds. So a win for Sam Pollitt Racing, with 3 different teams making up the top 3. Dan Holland Racing, courtesy of Finley Lines, Albert Friend in second. Finley Lines for KR Sport in third, ahead of Sebastian Clark. Alfie Ward rounding out your top 3. Sebastian Clark picking up the fastest lap of the race with a 58.118. Kian Bernard, Luan Seidel, Jensen Chalk, Mousse Loris Perron, Yanis Courage rounding out your top 10. Gillian Dummer, Matthias Verreken, Louis Radcliffe, Didier Dardala and Justin Font complete the top 15. Leo Hardouin, Dion Bracker, Lionel Munguia, Jensen Walker, Yelan Vandenberger, Ozhan Alpaslan from Turkey, Max Bogsal, Ruslan Saraya and Yente Moonen rounding out the finishers. And unfortunately, Lucian Smith, due to that incident early on the race, would retire. So, just over 3 minutes to go until we go into the final part of our opening day in terms of the qualifying heats and the pre-finals for the opening round of the 2026 BNL Karting Series season. We turn our attention back to senior Rotax. So, Vince van der Halle from Bouvard Power, Sverre Ubben and Bastien Mesnil for GKS and Dams Racing rounded out your top three in the confirmed results from qualifying heat 1, B versus C. Scott Marsh won on the road by 96 thousandths of a second ahead of Taze van Wyk and Macaulay Bishop. So those drivers, some of which will have already completed their respective heats as the grid is now being cleared with 3 minutes to go. So the final bit of well wishes to the drivers by their mechanics before they get behind the wheel. And now this is the opportunity where the drivers can have, you know, some might use visualization when it comes to their game plan on this particular race. Some will visualize the circuit, obviously use what they've already found out through morning warm-up, through qualifying, and through their respective first heat. So we will have a total of 28 drivers set to take part in this final qualifying heat of day one for senior Rotax. Oh, and there's a name I recognise on the steering wheel of I think it's Vic van Kampenhout, who's due to start on the inside of row 11, running on the Pantano chassis. Of course, the mark run and operated by ex-F1 star Giorgio Pantano. So the recovery van and trailer now heading into its position here at the circuit as we are just patiently waiting for the green flag to fly for the final 7 minute plus an additional lap qualifying heat for senior Rotax for round one, day one here at Racing Kart JPR. Big thank you to them for welcoming us back with open arms here after 3 years of us last competing here back in 2023. So there is your starting grid. Taze van Wyk and Sverre Ubben will be on the front row ahead of Raphael Moreau and Vince van der Halle, who won Heat 1. Scott Marsh and Boris Maximov row 3. That's an all-strawberry racing lineup there. Krik Knoren and Kenneth van Mokerke, row 4. Louis Oliver Gunther and Blan van der Beken ran out the top 10. Augustin Boulet and Bastien Mesnil ran out row 6. Raymond van Beek and Danny Shields, row 7. Antoine Taron and Callum Sims, row 8. Row 9, Lado Koolhernidze and Koen Willems. Ryan Bourguignon and Max Sedersky ran out your top 20. Vic van Kampenhout, Conor Lage, Kjell de Risgaard, Matthias Jederup, Tino Sidler, Liam von Hecke, Arav Dewan and Ryan Gandor bring up the rear of the field. So 14 rows of competitors, totaling 28. Welcome into the chat, Hannah Zuberfeld. The baby-faced assassin, I called him in 2024 when he did something that not a lot of people in RMC Germany have done. Won the junior title back in 2023 and then won it with 1 round to go in seniors the following season. Or was that 2023? I can't remember off the top of my head, Hannahs. You might have to remind me. But yeah, it was. Yeah, it was 2024. Have to give a shout out to good friend and fellow commentator Sebastian Bauer, who I was alongside in the booth with for the majority of that season. I still remember we had the what people called the RMC Germany Winter Trophy. We had every single. Oh right, hang on a second. That is Sverre Ubben pulling off to the right side of the road. Oh dear. Chain has come off. And driver... Oh dear. That is not what you needed to have happen at this point. So Sverre Ubben, unfortunately, is out. So we will have a gap on the outside of the front row. So Thijs van Wijk will be all on his lonesome. So this is going to give an opportunity, I would say, to Vince van der Halle to the outside of the second row. As we go revs up, lights on, and we are green. Here for the final qualifying heat. Thijs van Wijk leads the field. As someone has a little bit of a misstep. I think that might have been Louis Oliver Gunther. As great move there by Thijs van Wijk to keep it to the outside of turn 3. Knew he had room to play with there. So very, very good indeed. Scott Marsh now up into second. Now, bearing in mind, Thijs van Wijk and Scott Marsh were battling for the race lead in the previous heat. Oh, and going a little bit bumpy off circuit. 3:26. Raphael Moreau is no longer in third position. The French driver is dropping down the order. And Diane Antonissen, yep. Thank you very much, Hannah Zuberfeld, for correct. Yes, it was 2023 and 2024, so I was right. Thank you. But at the moment, the thing is, possible pole position in the final could be down to qualifying. Thijs van Wijk was fastest, so Scott Marsh has got to beat the Dutchman on the road. But then, of course, you can't count out Vince van der Halle. Oh, that was very, very cheeky there by Raphael Moreau, who I think just managed to do the little samba shimmy through on more than likely Louis Oliver Gunther, possibly. And there is Moreau. And that is Boz Maximov that has got through on Gunther from Germany. So, yep, so Diane Antonissen, unfortunately, Sverre is out. Chain came off the sprockets, I'm afraid. But now to the lead goes Scott Marsh. Lap 3, turn 3. But in the meantime, look who's in third. So it's Scott Marsh from Strawberry Racing, Thijs van Wijk from Dan Holland Racing, and Vince van der Halle from Bouvin Power in P3. Now, bearing in mind, Marsh has won his first heat. Van Wijk to the inside, turn 10, neat and picture perfect by the 369 from DHR. Marsh, how late was that dive by the young man from the UK? So Scott now goes defensive. Van Wijk nearly opened the door of invitation to Vince van der Halle through turn number 1. Marsh again. Across the front of Van Wijk he goes. Van der Halle, will he get to the inside of turn 4? Yes! Now this will mean that Scott Marsh, if he wins this race, it's 100 points to his credit, putting him on provisional pole position. If Van der Halle gets through and wins his second heat out of 2. That'll put him on pole position. Van Wyk, I think, well, he's got to win this because he took second in his first heat. He was on overall pole position in time qualifying. And more to the point, Scott Marsh qualified 7th overall. Marsh stays in the race lead, but keep your eyes on Van der Halle. He goes to the outside into turn 2, and there's a little bit of a touch between bumpers. Marsh was sideways, Van Wyk to the outside at 3. However, the Dutchman can't get through on either the Belgian or the Briton. Up ahead, through into turn 6 and 7. Here we are on lap 5 out of a provisionally scheduled 9 laps of racing, give or take. But there is an absolute free-for-all a little bit further back. I spot from 8th position, Kenneth van Merkerke, as now Van der Halle through at turn 11, and Scott Marsh to the outside at 12. Oh my days! Scott Marsh with a high, wide and handsome manoeuvre around the outside at turn 12 retakes the race lead. Any one of these 3 drivers here might get pole position. Oh no! Dramas there. 380 goes off, and so does, I think that is the 351. Ladoku Anitse from Georgia and Liam von Hecke from Belgium. The latter ending up just off of the tyre barriers. I think that was off of the entry point. Yep, down into turn 12 and turn 13. But Thijs van Wyk at the moment with a 2nd and a 1st. That'll effectively put him on 94 points. Scott Marsh, a 1st and a 2nd. Ties on points. Marsh needs the win. And Marsh to the outside here at turn 3. Patrick Verbist, you get a Brand van der Weken update. Up to P6 now is the youngster from Belgium. But we've got this and 2 more laps to go. Van Wyk and Marsh were battling away tooth and nail in that previous heat, along with Macaulay Bishop. But Marsh, as I said, qualified 7th overall, 6 places behind the man in front of him. 2 laps remaining in the morning action here for day 1 of the season opener. And Scott Marsh now needs to find a little bit of slipstream assist to help him, as 393 is out of the race, I'm afraid. And that is going to be, well, let's see who that is. 393. Raymer van Beek is out, but the timer hit 0 through the chicane for the penultimate time. Scott Marsh has to try and do everything he can if he wants that pole position. But it's not too bad being on the outside of the front row, but going into the final later on, when it's going to be 15 minutes plus an additional lap, that is double the time of every single qualifying heat, he'll have to play a little bit of the strategy game. Van Wyk is now half a second up the road from Marsh. Into turn 3. Here on the 9th and final tour, Vince van der Halle is a further 1.5 seconds back, but he's just put in the fastest lap of this race. 57.302 by the youngster from Bouvin Power and Belgium. It's going to come down to the wire as we now head into turn 10 for the final time. Marsh has halved that gap But can he do one of his special magician tricks at turn 12? It ain't going to happen here. What's going to happen at the final corner? Van Wyk powers to victory, provisionally to pole for the final, ahead of Scott Marsh, who provisionally ties him on points. Vince van der Halle will line up, I think, P3 after that effort, as he takes third on the road with 91 points. Crick Cluren takes P4. Louis Oliver Gunther takes P5. Ahead of Kenneth van Mokerke. Danny Shields up from 14th to finish P7. Bran van der Weyken, Rafael Moreau and Koen Willems ran out your top 10. Augustin Boulet, Bastien Mesnil ran out the top 12 ahead of Matthias Jallerup, who made up 11 places to finish in lucky number 13. Max Sidursky up from 20th to finish 14th ahead of Switzerland's Tino Sidler. Callum Sims, Arad Dewan, Ryan Bourguignon, Ryan Gandor and Connor Large complete your top 20. Vic van Kampenhout, Antoine Terron, Hjaldi Risgaard and Lado Kohanidze completes your runners and riders, 24 out of 28 drivers finishing the race. Boaz Maximov, Raymer van Beek, Liam van Hecke and Sverre Ubben unfortunately retiring, with Ubben not even making the race start, but Van Wyk provisionally could be on pole position for today's first final of the weekend. Well, officially that now takes us to the lunch break here at Racing Kart JPR in Ostricourt in Eastern France, as we very shortly after the lunch break will go to the first set of finals for the 2026 season here in this wonderful part of this country at a fantastic track that really makes the drivers want to race here. So, from myself, Alex Goldschmidt, we will see you a little bit later on, as we'll now take a little bit of respite, rehydration, and see you after the lunch break for our finals. We'll see you then.